In the 19th century, many writers took on the challenge of penning their own fairy tales for a new generation, rather than relying exclusively on the stories passed down through the centuries. One of the most successful and beloved of all was Hans Christian Andersen. The Danish author was a prolific writer of novels, plays, poetry, and even travelogues, but his most enduring work has undoubtedly been his extensive collection of fairy tales told for children. They would feature stories as popular now as they were when first published, including The Princess and the Pea, The Emperor's New Clothes, and The Red Shoes. Dance in your red shoes till you are pale and cold, till your skin shrivels up and you are a skeleton. Dance you shall from door to door, and where proud and wicked children live you shall knock, so that they may hear you and fear you. Dance you shall. While the Brothers Grimm's fairy tales were the bedrock of Disney's earlier features, Hans Christian Andersen has been a boon for more recent Disney works of animation. In recent decades, they've enjoyed tremendous success with an adaptation of The Little Mermaid, and with Frozen, which was taken from The Snow Queen. But one of the very earliest attempts to bring Andersen to the big screen was by the famous duo of Powell and Pressburger with The Red Shoes. The original tale of a young girl who must continue to dance indefinitely in her red shoes would become one of Powell and Pressburger's most revered films. He had been inspired by both Hans Christian Andersen and the Brothers Grimm to write his own fairy tales, but with a uniquely American sensibility. As a result, witches and wizards were combined with cornfields and scarecrows in The Wonderful Wizard of Oz, first published in 1900. It was almost immediately made into a successful Broadway production, which would then inspire another 13 books set in the mythical land of Oz. But Baum's work has since been completely overshadowed by the enormously successful film adaptation from 1939, which became one of the great depictions of a fantastical fictional world of the 20th century.
In Kansas anymore. We must be over the rainbow.
While Baum's work has been rather forgotten, J.R.R. Tolkien's literary work continues to be as popular as ever. His stories, set in Middle-earth, beginning with The Hobbit and continuing with the Lord of the Rings trilogy and beyond, are some of the most epic works of myth and legend since medieval times.
It began with the forging of the great rings. 3 were given to the elves, immortal, wisest and fairest of all beings. 7 to the dwarf lords, great miners and craftsmen of the mountain halls. And 9 rings were gifted to the race of men who, above all else, desire power. For within these rings was bound the strength and will to govern each race. But they were all of them deceived, for another ring was made. In the land of Mordor, in the fires of Mount Doom, the Dark Lord Sauron forged in secret a master ring to control all others. And into this ring he poured his cruelty, his malice, and his will to dominate all life. One ring to rule them all.
The actual beginning, though it's not really the beginning, but the actual flashpoint was, I remember very clearly. I can still see the corner in my house in 20 Northmore Road where it happened. I got an enormous pile of exam papers there, and marking school examinations in the summertime is an enormous, very laborious, and unfortunately also boring. And I remember picking up a paper, and actually if I nearly gave an extra mark for it, extra 5 marks. There was one page on this particular paper was left blank, glorious, nothing to read. So I scribbled on it, I can't think why, in a hole in the ground lived a hobbit.
The Hobbit was published in 1937 and led to rave reviews for Tolkien, who was at the time a professor of Anglo-Saxon at Oxford University. He called upon his vast knowledge of epic poetry, in particular Beowulf, and his talent for constructing languages when writing his magnum opus, The Lord of the Rings, which would be published in 3 parts from 1954 to 1955.
To try my hand at writing a really stupendously long narrative, and to see whether I had sufficient art, cunning, or material to make a really long narrative which would hold the average reader right through. If you really come down to any large story that interests people, hold them attention for a considerable time, or make stories, practically always, a human story is practically always about one thing, aren't they? Death. Inevitably death.
The Lord of the Rings is one of the best-selling books of all time. It caused a particular sensation in the United States, where it was immediately popular on college campuses, with students eager to learn more of the tales of Middle-earth. At the turn of the millennium, it would be turned by Hollywood into one of the most critically acclaimed and commercially successful adaptations of any work of literature.
North America has always been much more easily kindled than England, or indeed any country in Europe. And for instance, the Dickens cult and the extraordinary excitement about Dickens. So the only people who came down to the quay to watch the mail ship coming, the only thing they wanted to know is what happened in the next chapter. They weren't worried about goods.
The epic literature of myths and legends are foundation stones for cultures all around the world. They continue to inspire readers, both young and old, and in this new era of computer effects, these amazing tales are bound to be brought back to the big screen in ever more spectacular ways.